All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today. Before I get into the body of this video, real quick, I just want to say the Hawk's Nest stream, the Talking Seahawks with the Hawk's Nest stream, has been moved to tonight. Usually we go Thursday night, but this week we are doing the show on Tuesday. There's no show on Thursday. We're not doing a double up week. We're just moving it 2 days earlier. So the stream with the Hawk's Nest will be tonight at 7 o'clock Pacific. On my channel and his channel, we'll be talking about free agents. Going to be talking about the free agents that we could pull from the outside into the Seahawks to try to make the team better for 2024. So tune in if that sounds interesting to you. And yeah, just want to let everybody know about the schedule change. So about 4 hours from the upload of this video, the stream will be live. So tune in if that sounds interesting to you. And yeah, thank you. So this video, I thought it would be a good opportunity to take a step back and look at things with a bird's eye view. Take a step back and look at the coaching staff that has been put together by Mike Macdonald and John Schneider so far. So we've obviously analyzed basically every hire so far individually, but sometimes when you're doing that, you lose track of how things look in the big picture. So this video is going to be an opportunity to kind of go through it and see how it all looks now that it's really coming together, and also get an idea of what still needs to be potentially done. So I put it into this bullet point lineated list, I guess you could call it, using, like secondary and tertiary bullet points to denote when a coach is going to be kind of serving below another coach, and also estimating what kinds of other positions might get filled in. So obviously head coach is Mike Macdonald. And when you're taking a look at the way things are delineated below him, you have offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, and then you have defensive coordinator Aiden Durd. So the thing that jumps out there is Mike Macdonald, zero experience as a head coach at any level. Ryan Grubb, he's got plenty of offensive coordinator and play calling experience, but it's all in college. He has zero NFL coaching experience of any kind. And then Aiden Durd, you have, NFL experience, but you have no defensive coordinator experience. So that's kind of the thing that jumps out, and that's why the Leslie Frazier hire was so important, I think, because his level of experience in the NFL is massive, and it helps offset some of this. When you have a head coach with no head coaching experience, you have an OC with no NFL experience, and a DC with no DC experience, I think having Leslie Frazier kind of pulls down the worries that some of us should have about the inexperience of this coaching staff. Because if we didn't have the Leslie Frazier hire at assistant head coach, I would definitely look at this and go, this has a chance to go really, really wrong, really, really badly. And when it with Leslie Frazier on board, I think it's less likely, because Leslie Frazier has been a defensive coordinator all over the NFL. He's been a head coach before. He wasn't a very good head coach, but he was a head coach in some capacity. And his experience is going to be very crucial, I think, in providing that foundation. So that's kind of the coordinator part of it. So let's drill down a little bit more and try to understand both what we have and what we might be looking to get. Quarterback coach is Charles London, who does have a few years experience as an NFL QB coach. A lot of his experience was running back coach, but he does have a few years of experience here. Now, last year, the Seahawks had an assistant quarterback coach. I'm not so sure they're going to have one this year, because Ryan Grubb is also kind of a quarterback coach, because that's the role that he occupied at Fresno State and UW. So I'm not sure anybody would come in and be like, oh yeah, I want to be the assistant head coach under assistant quarterback coach, under Ryan Grubb and Charles London. So we may not have an assistant QB coach this year. We got Kennedy Polamalu, who's one of the best running back coaches in the league. A lot of experience going all the way back to the 00s and even a little bit, I think, in the 90s. But you typically don't have an assistant running back coach. Now, you could, And that's one thing to understand about putting together a coaching staff. You can make up roles and you can kind of massage your coaching staff positions to where you get everybody that you want on your staff. So we could have an assistant running back coach, but I don't feel like there's going to be a need. Kennedy Polamalu is such a good one that I'm not so sure that that would even be something that we would give that person anything to do. Wide receiver coach, Frisman Jackson, decent amount of experience doing wide receiver coaching work in the NFL. Did it for Pittsburgh, did it for Carolina. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see some kind of assistant brought in to coach the wide receivers, because that's such an important part of the team going forward because we have so much talent there. So it wouldn't surprise me if we brought in an assistant, but last year I don't believe we had one. So as of right now, that's anybody's guess if there's going to be somebody underneath of Frisman Jackson in that role. Offensive line coach is Scott Huff, and I'm sure we're going to have at least one assistant offensive line coach. We might have two. Last year we did, and now we have a guy with 0 NFL experience. This guy's been a college coach his whole career. I'm sure we're going to have some kind of an assistant OL coach. Don't know who it could be. Hard to really guess at this point, right? Because it's so far down. You don't even really know where to start looking for candidates, right? But I'm very confident that we're going to have one, preferably somebody who's been in the NFL a little while to kind of help Huff, because the crux of our offensive line coaching also goes back to Grubb, because Grubb was an offensive line coach when he started out. Well, Grubb and Huff both have 0 NFL experience, so the assistant offensive line coach might be coming in here kind of like Leslie Frazier came in for Mike McDonald. Like saying, I know how things work in the NFL. I can help guide you guys through your first couple years. We don't have a tight ends coach yet. I'm sure we'll get one. You need at least one. I assume you only need the one. But as of right now, we don't have one. I'm sure that that's going to shake free in the coming weeks. We do have a passing game coordinator. It's Jake Peets, and that's a guy who I talked about in a video at length a few days ago. He's very exciting. I like Jake Peets quite a bit. Did some exciting stuff with the Rams last year. Excuse me. So that's exciting. We currently do not have a running game coordinator. You don't have to have one. And a lot of the time what teams will do is just assign one of their other positional coaches the running game coordinator job, and they just kind of occupy 2 roles. A lot of the time you'll see that, like they'll do that with passing game coordinator too. I think Raheem Morris at one point in Atlanta was the defensive coordinator and the passing game coordinator. So it could be that, but we could also bring somebody in, which again I would not mind finding somebody with some NFL experience. I'm sure we're going to have one way or the other. I don't think we're just going to leave that spot blank, because again, the concern with this staff is just the lack of relative experience. Grubb, Huff, both of them have never done this before at the NFL level. So I think you're going to want to fill out your coaching staff as much as you can, where you can. Certain roles, I don't know, like assistant quarterback coach could go either way. I'm not convinced that that would be a very appealing spot. But yeah, that's the offensive side. Now, going to the defense, like I said, Aiden Durd, no experience doing this DC stuff, but looking at what's going to be underneath him, the first thing is, this is the side of the ball that we need to fill out, and that's probably going to take a little while. We know that Mike McDonald is going to be calling plays on the defense, and we know that Aiden Durd is kind of a defensive line coach anyway, because that's his experience from Dallas. So the defensive line coach, I'm sure we're going to hire one, and we're probably also going to hire an assistant. We had both of those last year. That's not even including BT Jordan, by the way, who was a pass rush specialist. Who knows if we're going to even have one this year. Most teams don't have a pass run specialist, but the defensive line coach position is definitely not going to be super appealing, because Aiden Durd is going to be kind of a glorified defensive line coach for now, because he's not calling plays. So defensive line coach, I don't know who it could be. I assume that there's going to be an assistant defensive line coach, but again, it's going to be somebody we probably never heard of. Hopefully it's somebody who can maybe have their star on the rise a little bit so they can become a defensive coordinator at some point. because if things go well defensively here in Seattle, Aiden Durd might get a head coaching call in a couple years, even if he doesn't have much to do with the defense. We see that happen all the time. We see coordinators and assistants that don't seem to have a lot to do with the team's success get head coaching calls. So it's within the realm of possibility. We have filled out our linebacker coach room with a Kirk Olivadotti, and we also have the assistant linebacker coach now with Josh Bynes. And it's worth noting that Mike McDonald spent a lot of his time as the linebacker coach in Baltimore, so he's going to have his hands in there. So I don't expect we're going to hire another assistant linebacker coach. I think that's probably it. Maybe we get one in here specifically for the edge rushers, but this might be considered good enough. We currently don't have a secondary coach or a defensive back coach, and we, of course, don't have an assistant beneath him. I'm sure we're going to get both. Again, when you're talking about the lack of experience at the head coach and DC spot, you're going to want to fill out your coaching staff with positional guys that have experience at it. So I'm sure somebody's coming. We lost a Deshaun Shedd the other day, so it's not going to be him, but it is going to be somebody, maybe somebody from that Baltimore team. Leslie Frazier obviously kind of acts as a glorified secondary coach because he did a lot of secondary coaching in his career, but we do need somebody to occupy the role, and he probably needs an assistant. We still have our defensive passing game coordinator, Carl Scott, from the Carroll era. He's the carryover. I'm not expecting a ton of other stuff, like defensive run game coordinator is not really a thing. Like, I looked around, I'm not seeing other teams have that. You're going to see some defensive assistant and offensive assistants brought in, but it's hard to know how many of those there are going to be. Basically, as many as you can fit. And then, of course, special teams coordinator is Jay Harbaugh with Devin Fitzsimmons underneath him. Jay Harbaugh, new to the NFL, but longtime special team coordinator. Fitzsimmons, lots of NFL ST experience. And that's the coaching staff right now, guys. That's everything we got as of the recording of this video. I imagine these remaining spots are going to be filled out in the coming days. We're not waiting for anything. The season's over for every single coach. I imagine that in the coming days, we're going to hear more about these positional coaches that we're bringing in. But I kind of want to, the reason why I made this video was both to kind of just judge things from the top down. But how are you feeling about this staff in general? What's your what is the temperature of the room when it comes to this new Seahawks coaching staff, replacing Pete Carroll, replacing Shane Waldron, replacing Clint Hurt, replacing all of the assistants we had underneath them, guys like Greg Olson, guys like Larry Izzo, Andy Dickerson, etc., etc., etc. How do you feel about this coaching staff versus the previous coaching staff? How do you feel about this coaching staff versus other coaching staffs that the Seahawks have put together previously, like the Daryl Bevell, Brian Schottenheimer, Chris Richards, Tom Cables, Mike Solari, whoever it may be? How do you feel how this is How do you feel about how this is coming together? Because I gotta say, I'm on board with most of the stuff here. I'm aware of the fact that it can go wrong. Like, absolutely, Ryan Grubb can go miserably wrong. He's a college guy. I don't think Aiden Durd can go that wrong because he's not going to have big responsibilities, but going back to Mike McDonald, never head coached before. It could go wrong. I see the risk, but I also see massive reward. Ryan Grubb was the best OC in college football. Scott Huff was the best offensive line coach in college football. So if it works, it's going to work at such a high level. And you would not have seen this under most regimes, I feel like. Like, Pete Carroll would not have hired Ryan Grubb to be his offensive coordinator ever. It's just too risky. He just wouldn't have been on board with that. In his mind, he's just like, I don't need to hit a home run with the offense. I'm just trying to be decent. So I look at that and I go, that's so much more exciting than anything we would have done with Carroll. I look at the defensive side and I go, it's not as exciting, but the McDonald factor kind of offsets that because he's such an exciting guy to bring in here. I'm looking at some of these positional coaches we're bringing in offensively, like Polamalu's a great hire, and I just think to myself, would this be happening if we didn't have such a young and appealing head coach that is kind of, the talk of the league right now in some capacity? Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Stream in about 4 hours. Catch you there. Go Hawks.